In today's lesson, we're going to solve one-step equations. When we solve one-step equations, our goal is to find the value of the variable. What does the variable represent? All right, let's start with our first example, and I'm just going to write them out today. Our first example is a plus 2 equals 8. Now, we want to find out the value of a. Now, this one is fairly simple. We could probably find it just by looking at it, but they become more complex and we need to understand the process. So we'll start with an easy one. We're going to show this by modeling with tape diagrams. So I'm going to draw two diagrams. They're exactly the same length because they are equal. One of them is for this side of the equation, of the equal sign, and one of them is for this side of the equal sign. So I'm going to put the 8 on the top one. So this top one represents 8. The bottom one represents a plus 2. Those are equal. They're the same thing. All right, now, if this is the case, I'm going to draw a couple more so we can kind of see a visual. This is 8. This part is 2. Now, if we look at this, we know that this whole thing is 8. We need to know what this part is. This part is what goes with 2 to make 8. Okay, let's look at one more set. We know that 6 goes with 2 to make 8, and I'm going to mark that in a different color here. We know that 6 goes with 2 to make 8. Okay. We also know that A goes with 2 to make 8. These two parts right here we see are equal. These are the same. So we know that A equals 6. Now, it's not always going to be that easy and that straightforward. So we need to be able to show this algebraically, meaning in an equation or using math. Okay, so we have the additive identity property we learned a while back that tells us if we have a plus 2 and we take away 2, we'll be left with a. We have a and 2 and we take away 2, we'll be left with a. If that's the case, then we can do the same for our equation. So if I have a plus 2 and I take away 2, I want to figure out what a is, so I have to get a alone. If I'm going to do that to this side, I'm going to underline what I did. If I'm going to do that to that side of the equation, I need to do the same thing to the other side of the equation. I need to subtract 2. 2 minus 2, it cancels it out. It kind of goes back to 0. So it will be a equals 8 minus 2 is 6. I can show that because a minus 2 is a. 8 minus 2 is 6. If we take away the 2 off the 8, we can do 8 minus 2 and a minus 2, and now they're equal. A is equal to 6. Let's substitute and check. So let's substitute in for our original equation. Let's put 6, the answer we found. I'm sorry, it's shadow here. Answer we found 6. We'll substitute back in for a. So we will have 6 plus 2 equals 8. Is that true? Is 6 plus 2 equal to 8? Well, yes it is. So that we know that our answer is correct and it is a good answer. All right. I'm going to scoot over to this side here. Hopefully we'll be able to fit our problem on. In our next problem, we're going to work with multiplication. Multiplication is a little bit trickier. Division gets even harder. So let's take a look at the problem 3 z, and I put a little line through the middle of my z so you know it's not a 2, because some of our z's look like 2's. 3z equals 9. So this says that 3 times something equals 9. We know that answer, but again, we have to start simple so that we can understand the process of understanding it. Okay, so let's draw our diagrams here. The first one is going to represent one part of the equation, and the other one's going to represent the other part. Let's start with our whole number here, 9, just for fun. And this will represent the 3z. Okay, well we know there are 3 z's in this second part here, so I'm going to just split it into 3 parts, because there are 3 z's. Here's 1 z, 2 z's, 3 z's. There are 3 z's, and it's the same as 9. 3 z's equals 9. It's the same parts. Now, if I was going to divide it up, if I was going to take this 9 and I was going to split it into 3 parts, mathematically, I would be doing 9 divided by 3, because I'm dividing it into 3 places. Well, let's remember back, I think it was way back in our first unit, we talked about tape diagrams and how this whole thing equals 9. There are 3 parts. If we split it into each individual part, each part is 3. So that means, I'm going to squeeze in my little 3's here, that means each part is 3. Well, one part is z. So therefore z equals 3. Right, we need to show this algebraically, kind of with our math. So to do that, this is the multiplicative identity. It tells us that if we take 3 times z and we divide by one of those numbers, either one of them, we'll be left with the other one. So if we take these numbers and we divide by the 3, we're going to be left with the z. If we would have divided by z, we would have been left with 3, but I don't know why we would need to do that, so we won't. All right, so this is the multiplicative identity property. So let's set this up to work with our equation. If we have 3 times z and we divide it by 3, we need to do, this is what we did, we need to do the same thing on the other side. Whatever you do to one side of the equal sign, you must do the other. Now this 3 divided by 3 is going to cancel out. It's going to be like 1z, and 1z is just z. Keep forgetting my line there. Excuse me. So that we know that z, because these cancel out, we're left with z, equals 3. Now let's plug in and see. So if we plug this number 3 in, we're going to substitute it in for the z up here. Then we have 3 times z, which is 3, equals 9. Is that true? Well, yes, 3 times 3 is 9. So we know that this answer of z equals 3 is correct, and it works. All right, let's try one more. This one is going to be the most complicated, and if we just kind of break it down a little bit, I think it will be easier to digest, but it is a little bit tricky. So let's take a look. All right, our problem is y divided by 4, and remember, oops, I'm sorry. Remember, when we write it algebraically, we put it on top instead of writing the division sign. So y divided by 4 equals 2. Okay, let's take a look. Let's draw our tape diagrams, one for this side and one for this side of the equation. So I'll just start with the first one. Y divided by 4 and 2. They're equal. Alrighty, now we got before, we got a part that was alone the variable all by itself. So we had alone an a and we had alone a z. We want to get our variable by itself with nothing else there. So we don't want y divided by 4 in this section. We want just y. Well, we're not allowed to just put it there. We have to show it there. So this is y divided by 4. if we had 4 pieces, if y was the whole thing, let's say here's y, because we want it by itself, right? So let's just make us a y, big one, because this is the little part. And if we divide y into 4 pieces, this is going to be one of those pieces, y divided by 4. So I'm going to draw another one. Here's y again. This time we're going to split it into 4 pieces. This is y divided by 4, gives you whatever this is. Y divided by 4 gives you whatever this is. Y divided by 4, and y divided by 4. Now we're writing it this way because it's horizontal. Okay, it fits. Okay, so we know if this whole thing is y, and we split it into 4 pieces, we divided it by 4. And whatever we get, there's our answer. And there's the same answer and the same thing 4 times. All right, I see something here. I see that this one is equal to this one, right? I also see that this one is equal to each one of those. So if that's the case, I'm going to draw another one. I'm going to split it the same way, as I know that one of these y divided by 4s is equal to 2. So one of those y divided by 4s is equal to 2, because that's the same as this, it's just shown a different way. So this one y divided by 4 is equal to 2. And this one, and this one. So y is equal to this. It's also equal to this. If I look at this, there's 2, 4, 6, 8. So this is 8. This is y. It's equal to 8. So I know that y equals 8. Now that's very tricky. That's hard for my brain to wrap around. I know how to do it. This understanding of the y is what we're going for. I don't know that as well because I didn't learn it that way. But if you understand that, it will help you to understand the y. Okay, the y, like W-H-Y, not this y. Okay, let's substitute and check. And then let's show it algebraically first. How about that? Okay. I'm going to go back to my green here. I'm going to write over here since I have room, y divided by 4 equals 2. Now, we have another identity property that tells us that if we take, I'm going to write it out this way so we can kind of see it a little better. If we take y divided by 4 times 4, it's kind of the opposite of our last one where we had a multiplication and then division and they kind of canceled each other out. This is the same way. We started with a division and we have a multiplication. We want to get y alone, so we're going to divide by or multiply by the other number. Okay, so y divided by 4 times 4 is going to give us y. All right, so if we go back to our original problem, we have y divided by 4 times 4. This is what we did right here. That's not my division sign, that's my underline. Whatever we did to the one side of the equals, we have to do the other side. So we have 2, and we're going to multiply by 4, so that we did the same thing on both sides. All right, this identity property tells me that we're going to be left just with our variable. So these two are going to cancel out, and we're left with y equals 8. Now this is algebraic. If you're given this problem and you need to solve, you do not have to draw out the example unless you're asked to. The beginning you're going to be asked to so that you understand the y of it. Once we get farther into our lessons, all you'll need to do is this. So once you understand the y of it, you understand the identity property here, you can move on to this step. Let's substitute and check. If y equals 8, then our problem is 8 divided by 4 equals 2. Is that correct? 8 divided by 4 does equal 2, so therefore y equals 8 is a good answer. All right, that is our lesson on solving one-step equations. If you have any questions, you know the drill. Please put them in your ISN.